Good morning. I'm Jennifer East. I'm the Director of Business Development with the Keystone Center and the Keystone Center Extended Care Unit for Sexual Compulsivity and Trauma. And I'm joined today by Dr. David Pellack, the Director of the Keystone Center Extended Care Unit.
Hello, good morning.
Welcome. So, David, we know that the Keystone ECU treats individuals with a sexual addiction, but do we do any work with their partners or something called partner betrayal?
Very, very good question. The partners often need a lot of work, help, treatment themselves. They've been betrayed. There's 3 types of disclosure, and disclosure is a way that somebody determines, a wife, spouse, partner, friend, children, find out that a parent, partner has done something inappropriate sexually, has had an affair, is looking at pornography. The 3 types are therapeutic, and that's where everyone, under the direction of therapists or at least one CSAT therapist, certified sex addiction therapist, they will work with the couple, work with the husband who has done the betraying, work with the spouse who has been betrayed. Betrayal is so difficult. It's not uncommon for people to have been in a relationship for years and then suddenly realize, whoa, my wife's spouse, my husband, spouse, partner has been having an affair for 6 years. Half of our married life has been looking at pornography, has gone to prostitutes. So the therapeutic way is it allows the spouse to work through their trauma and ask any questions they might have when the disclosure is done. We want to make sure that the spouse has help, has assistance in working with their betrayal. It's very, very difficult for the spouse. So again, the person will make a list of all the ways that they have, all the behavior they've engaged in, and present it in a therapeutic setting to the spouse, wife, spouse, partner. Another type of disclosure is staggered. That's usually the most difficult and damaging. A spouse might see, or a child might see a text message on a phone, something very sexual, giving the impression that there's somebody else in this person's life. They might find a receipt from a hotel. They might notice that money is going missing, certain credit card charges. They know something's going on. And then suddenly when they're forced to acknowledge that my husband, spouse, partner is acting out in some way, going to massage parlors, having an emotional, a sexual affair, and they, again, feel betrayed. They might confront the person, and the person might say, oh, yes, I was looking at pornography, or, oh, that wasn't me, or, oh, that was accidental. I promise I won't do it again. I haven't done it in the past. The wife, the spouse, partner starts to develop trust in the individual again. And then, unfortunately, they might, be checking the phone every so often, and maybe they, see another text message. Maybe they see, in the history, or maybe they walk in a room and they see that the husband has been looking at pornography again. Maybe they find another receipt. There is an unexplained charge. And it's devastating. I started to trust you. You promised me that this was either, a fluke, a mistake. It was someone else. And now, again, I've been betrayed. How do I start to develop that trust in you again? Person then might begin to go for therapy. A person might trust him again, depending on what it is. But then again, there's a slip. There's, they find the person's been looking at pornography, went to a massage parlor, unexplained times at work, not being present, always on their phone, and they just get the impression, I can't do this. There's going to be another, I have a feeling there'll be another disclosure. I'll find out more. So that's the staggered. And then the third type is forced. And that's when, it makes the news, Or it's not just, well, I think I saw something in your history about pornography. I'm not quite sure. But you see your husband, spouse, partner engaging in, masturbation while looking at pornography, looking at a certain type of pornography. You catch them having an affair. You see them at a restaurant or whatever. And that is often obviously very, very difficult to deal with. We encourage, we will talk to the spouse if they're willing to talk to us. Release of information has to be signed. The client is, of course, our patient, so they decide how much contact and what type of information they want shared with the wife, spouse, partner. But we would encourage the person to come in if they live locally, or to do some Zoom sessions talking about things. We don't want to open up a can of worms, and we won't do a disclosure knowing that the wife, spouse, partner might not be in therapy themselves, might not be in a position to get some overwhelming news. Some partners will ask for a disclosure thinking they know exactly what level, what type, how much behavior their spouse has engaged in, when in actuality, they really don't know. And it's, when they hear all of it, it's overwhelming. So we want to make sure they're in a safe environment. They have someone to talk to. So we don't do disclosure. What we typically talk about is communication issues, boundaries. What boundaries is the spouse setting for the client's return, if indeed they are allowed to return to the home. Sometimes it's I'll accept you in the home, but you're going to be sleeping in a separate bedroom. You are allowed to return home, but all electronics need to be shut off and kept downstairs. They're not being brought into the bedroom. You are coming to bed when I come to bed. You are not going to be, when you come home from work, whatever, all electronics are going to stay on, in the kitchen, and you're not going to be on your phone while we're having dinner, while we're watching TV together. You're going to be present with me. We talk about not only boundaries, and sometimes the husband in treatment will have some boundaries that they will set. I'm going to ask that you please not dress a certain way. And, it does, stimulate me, and I want to maintain, my celibacy. We encourage people to, maintain a celibacy contract when they leave. And that is up to the wife, the therapist, the sponsor to determine, when the person might be ready to start engage in sexual behavior again. And we also talk about expectations. So what are your expectations when your husband returns home? Are you thinking he's going to be totally cured? He's not going to need meetings? Do you understand that a lot of time will be spent going to meetings, either in person, on Zoom? Boundaries could also be, we don't encourage spouses, partners, children, family members to be the accountability partner, but sometimes a wife, spouse, partner, child will want to be an accountability partner. I want to know where you are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I want an app placed on your phone that tells me exactly where you are. I want to have access to all of our bills, our credit cards, any kind of money transactions. I want to know how much money you're spending, where it's going. And, there are other spouses that, say, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. If I have to, micromanage you this much, I'm not going to get any enjoyment out of our marriage. I have to, learn to trust you. And if I can't, then, there's going to be another consequence. And the consequence might be that, we need a trial separation, whatever. So the betrayal of the partner is very, very significant. And it takes a while. And I think a lot of clients that come to the Keystone or that are in treatment think, well, I've been to treatment. Look at how much I've learned. Look at how much improvement I've made, how much insight I've gained. Surely she'll start to forgive me. Surely she'll, not have as many boundaries on me. And that's not always the case. And justifiably, the spouse needs time and needs to see that the person really is dedicated to their recovery and making progress with intimacy, with honesty, and again, is committed to their recovery.
David, are there any types of betrayal that are more damaging?
That's interesting. I think betrayal is traumatizing no matter what. But over the years, I have heard two questions that spouses often ask. And one of them is, when you said you had to work on my birthday, on our anniversary, when you canceled our weekend trip to so-and-so, were you acting out with your affair partner? And when the answer is yes, that really hurts. So you canceled my birthday plans to be with your affair partner. Obviously, they're more important than I am. That's one. The other one I often hear is, not always, but often, a wife, spouse, partner will feel more comfortable if the affair was purely sexual than if it was either sexual and emotional or just emotional. Again, and there's that intimacy disorder. I don't feel as though I can be intimate, open, forthright with my spouse, but I can do so with someone else.
What level of support do we provide the partner/spouse with?
So what we always encourage them to seek treatment. And a lot of times they've already been in treatment when their husband comes for treatment at Keystone. So they've been going to a therapist. They've been going to a couples counselor. It's not uncommon for a couples counselor to maybe want to stop treatment until either typically it's the husband gets treatment themselves when they work on their own problems. And it's like a couple that want to go on a hiking vacation together. And, they know that they need to get in shape, and maybe the wife is, she's exercising every day. She's, doing strenuous workouts, and she's ready for this, beautiful hiking vacation, and the husband hasn't been. And the trip isn't going to be what they want it to be. They're not going to be able to, hike as much as they wanted to. They're not going to be able to do the rugged stuff because he hasn't been getting in shape. So oftentimes when there's couples counseling, if one spouse or the other isn't doing their own work, it's just not going to work. So a lot of times, the wife, spouse, partner might be, continuing with individual. And again, to deal with the betrayal, to begin to trust men, and a lot of times, have we married our father? Have we, our role models from childhood? I, was raised in a family where the parent, was inappropriate or had an addiction, or, as I say, my mother was codependent. And I guess I, followed the same path with my husband, and I have to work on myself to see what is it about this relationship that made me hold on so long when, I've realized that he's been distant. Now I realized he's been acting out inappropriately, and I've been betrayed.
Are there support groups for partners?
There are. For some people like to go to adult children of alcoholics. There are also partner groups for Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. I'm not sure if there are partner groups for all three, but you could look on the internet. You could call your local intergroup, find out where a 12-step group for, codependents, individuals, partners of individuals who are sex addicts. So again, SLAA, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, SAA, Sex Addicts Anonymous, or Sexaholics Anonymous. They often have partner groups. Oftentimes, there are groups that are offered through a certified sex addiction therapist. So you might join a group for betrayed partners.
Well, thank you, Dr. Pellack, for kind of talking to us about partner betrayal. I think it is something pretty significant that, the partner's spouses go through, and definitely it needs to be addressed, and they do need to seek treatment for themselves, it seems.
It really is. It requires patience on the part of the partner, and it also requires patience on the part of the person who did the traumatizing, because they, again, well, when are you going to forgive me? When will you trust me again? And it's got to be on their own time.
Well, that makes sense. Well, thank you again, Dr. Pellack.
Thank you.
If you would like to learn more about how Keystone Center ECU can help you or a loved one, visit us online at KeystoneCenterECU.net or call us today at 833-690-6100.